Hello everyone and welcome back to the Copenhagen FinTech Studio. So with me in the studio I have Pelle Pedersen from one of the very promising sustainable new fintechs here in Copenhagen, Denmark. Pelle is from Duland, as soon to be on the market, as I said, Danish fintech, and Pelle is also head of responsible investment at PKA Pension previously. And sit on numerous boards all related to sustainability. Pelle has also the last 5 years given lectures on impact investing at Copenhagen Business School, and was also part of the expert panel commissioned by the Bankers Association in Denmark, providing recommendations on how finance can support a sustainable economy. We also, with us today, we have Lars Malmberg from Danske Bank, employed in the financial sector since 1991. You beat me by 1 year, Lars. Employed, yeah, and with 25 years of leadership experience. Board member at the VC by Founders. Also involved in SPIR Nordic API Gateway and the Danish real estate agent chain Home. We were supposed to have also Christopher Smith from EY dialing in. Unfortunately, he's having some technical issues. He might be dialing in later. I will take his spot since this is a panel that is about trends in the Nordics and Europe now and in the future. And I might know a little bit of that also myself. So I will go and take a seat together with Pelle. And since this is discussion, it's going to be fairly relaxed and laid back. So I'll not break too much of the rhythm, so I will hand it over to you, Pelle, to begin with.
No, it's actually Lars just introducing.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, I can do the introduction, but you did a very good introduction, by the way, and let's hope that Chris will dial in at some point. But let's get started. I think we try to formulate some sort of a sub-question to the headline, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pelle, it should go like this. So how can fintechs play a role in shaping a more sustainable economy? And then I think let's come around this topic. And I think we have decided to discuss it from different angles and different perspectives. So I think, Pelle, I will start out by asking you another question is, why are fintechs relevant in terms of a more sustainable economy?
Thank you for that question, Lars. I think you could question why they are relevant, and I think for many people it's difficult to really grasp why that is the case. But if you think about it, the way we consume, the way we purchase, the way we invest, that is basically what's defining our society. But I think for the majority of us on a daily basis, we don't really consider that the way we use our credit card is actually shaping the future, and because of that, it is very relevant how we're spending our money. And I think for the majority of us as well, it's very difficult to live a sustainable lifestyle. So how can we make that easier than it is today? And I think that's where fintechs really can play a very, very important role in supporting that transition. Take an example, a fintech startup that used to sit here, no longer with us unfortunately, but a company called Own City trying to build on the blockchain a crowdfunding platform enabling local communities to actually invest in energy renovation projects locally. So take an example, you're a parent, you have your kids at a school, they don't have the funds to energy renovate the schools, leading to poorer indoor climate. Could you potentially use a system like that to bring energy renovation locally and also enabling people to actually invest? And I think even though that's difficult for a lot of people to sort of grasp that using blockchain in that way can be very effectful, but it can. So if we make it easier to have a more sustainable lifestyle through fintech, then I think fintechs can play a massive role in leading that transition. But I would actually give that question back to you, Lars, from your perspective and in your experience being at Danske Bank. looking at sort of the society and what's going on within finance. How is that the case?
Yeah, I think, and thank you very much for that question, because I think if we could take another perspective and actually look at it from a more incumbent bank perspective, but also looking at it from a financial industry perspective, I think this is not, in my view, any different from some of the other collaborations we have ongoing with other fintechs. Now we are just, you could say, supporting a increasing customer need, and that goes across personal customers and business customers. And in order to actually serve our clients and their, you could say, relatively fast and increasing demands on sustainable products, but also helping corporates do the kind of sustainable transformation inside the company, looking for advice side by side the relevant products. If we need and want to accelerate that agenda, I think we need to do that in close collaboration with the relevant fintech companies that are out there. And for me, that is key. And also take some of the learnings from some of the more established collaboration that we are seeing already and has been running for a number of years now in other areas of the financial industry, fintechs together with incumbent banks.
And what about you, Thomas? Taking a step back, looking into the community, how are fintech companies playing a much larger role in moving the world towards sustainable behavior?
Yeah, so I actually think it's super interesting, because I was thinking while you guys were talking, obviously I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but I think what is interesting is that if we maybe take it away a little bit from the startup side and just say financial technology and technology even. Technology is such an ingrained part in our daily lives on what we have on this one. If we just take some of the solutions that are widely implemented in Denmark, such as mobile pay or some of all the apps that we have, there's such an amount of data available to guide us to both live and invest and whatever in a more sustainable way. And I think, and then if we then move into the realm of startups, there's a lot of technology out there right now that is made available for startups to innovate on. And just as we had one of the previous panels like PSD2, making all these transaction data available. And I think what we see right now is a lot of startups actually in that space, taking that kind of data, both on the business side, but also on the consumer side, and actually starting to build insights and different solutions for improving businesses and consumer sustainability, ability to live more sustainable. So I think it's super relevant.
And maybe drilling on that in terms of the Copenhagen FinTech Lab, I know you guys are focusing more on sustainability and more on impact. Can you maybe just say a few words on some of the initiatives you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, so what we're doing right now is actually even from the very early stages, from incubation of new ideas, we're trying to work together with various advisors that can actually work together with the fintech startups and try to incorporate that sustainability mindset into the business from the very beginning. Also, because if you address some of the global goals, you're actually addressing, like I said in my opening speech, but also as some of the speakers kind of pointed towards, you're addressing a huge need, huge challenge, and therefore also a huge market.
And I see we have Christopher with us. Can you hear us, Christopher?
Hi.
Great to have you on board.
Chris.
See you here. Thanks for being here.
Are you able just to give a brief introduction to yourself and maybe dig into the question at hand? Why are fintechs relevant in terms of a more sustainable future?
Absolutely. So I'm Chris Schmitz. I'm a partner in EY based out of Frankfurt. I lead EY's European fintech practice, and we're working a lot with fintechs in diverse angles, kind of helping them grow, but also, of course, work together with our incumbent clients in creating solutions. And fintechs in today basically are a big driver of sustainability thinking in working with incumbent clients. We see some of the banks, some fintechs actually kind of having been founded as sustainable banks. So these are, of course, role models for other banks. Then we see fintechs that help some of the banks now to fulfill regulatory reporting requirements. There have been a large number of additional requirements being put in by the regulators to report on portfolios and sustainability of portfolios. We also see that some of the fintechs actually start building applications where you can, for example, track your carbon footprint. And this, of course, can be integrated into banking apps. So there's a lot of different angles where fintechs can actually play a role to support sustainability from a thinking point of view, but also in actual solutions.
And being on that, given the experience you have looking at the European market, where are we at? Do we have enough great startups out there actually contributing effectively to a more sustainable future, or are we just using these, let's say, few great examples? Are we still innovating in the old way, and then we have a few examples here, or are you seeing that shift in your experience?
So we just recently did a survey of fintechs in Europe on sustainability, and we came back with probably 50 to 60, which would qualify as being in this environment, which is, I think, quite considerable. But of course, taking a look at the overall number of fintechs, which is in the many thousands across Europe, it's still nascent. We have seen a number of sustainability hubs in the startup segment being founded in diverse countries, be it in the UK, be it in the Nordics, be it in Germany. So this is taking flight as we speak. We still probably need to foster it much more than we did in the past, because contribution from that angle is for sure something that banks, insurance companies are relying on to make it part of their everyday portfolio of services.
And maybe handing over to you, Lars, what you guys are doing at Danske Bank is very interesting in terms of focusing on impact-driven startups and also bringing in high-net individuals to invest in impact startups. What are you seeing in the ecosystem?
I think before going into the ecosystem discussion, I think getting back to the point around PSD2, I think we have learned a lot from that implementation. And I think we should take those learnings into the implementation of the compliance part of sustainability. So for us to build the right solutions on top together with fintechs, I think we also need to establish the right foundation that goes across whole Europe and the Nordics in terms of getting the EU taxonomy right and get basically also the reporting requirements right and aligned. And then thirdly, you could also say in terms of aligning data collection will be key here. So I think on top of that, then we can build value-added services much faster and much more compliant, because there's a big risk that this whole agenda turns into one big compliance project across Europe if we don't do it in the right way.
Yeah, I completely agree, Lars. But how do you foresee us doing that? Is it creating, let's say, a task force across the sector, or where we sort of agree on a common approach? Or how do we do that? Because I completely agree. If it's just a compliance exercise and we are saying now we're good, now all of us are sustainable, I'm not sure that's the approach. Should we be seeking more collaboration between the relevant stakeholders, and if so, how?
I think, in my view, I think we need industry standards on actually the topics that I mentioned before, and hopefully on EU level, but at least on a Nordic level. That is key. So we need to have some common standards up and running, and again here build on the PSD2 learnings as well here. Because I think that is going to be the kind of the preconditions for actually building the right solutions together.
And what role do you see Danske Bank could play in that exercise? Let's say I'm a new fintech startup. I'm a client at Danske Bank. Do you see also your guidance and the way you consult new fintech startups changing going forward, integrating sustainability more than it potentially is today?
Yes, definitely yes, and we will do that, deliberately through our growth and impact initiatives already running, and I see that will be basically top of the agenda for the next couple of years.
But maybe then going back to the ecosystem around fintechs and impact investing, what are we seeing? I think if we go, let's say, five years back, I think there was a lot of talk about AI and tech, and now sort of moving into sustainability. But I see still some challenges, particularly with regards to the available capital for impact-driven fintech startups. I don't see us having enough successful entrepreneurs with the expertise, with the know-how, understanding these new business models, and are able to apply them in a context of sustainability. I remember I think a year ago, I was in a panel with impact investors, meaning high-net individuals investing in impact-driven startups, where some of them still saw the impact agenda as being more risky than, let's say, a traditional fintech startup. Christopher and Lars, in your view, where are we in terms of the mindset within the ecosystem when it comes to fintechs focusing on sustainability?
Please, would you like to go first?
Yeah, happy to do that. I think the mindset has been changing over the last 12 months significantly. I mean, sustainability and the green agenda have come to the light also through the various protests basically everywhere around the world, and specifically in Europe, right? And probably kind of originating from the Nordics in this specific case. And what we have seen is that, for example, companies like Allianz, they start now giving out the clear guidance that they will not invest into anything that does not fulfill the sustainability requirements given by the authorities from 2030 onwards. So it absolutely creates the pressure, first of all, that we need to deal with this. Second, I think, if you take a look at the current situation and you take out the typical sustainable banks that have formed over the last couple of years, many of these providers actually position as B2B service providers for banks, for insurance companies, for many others. And from my point of view, that business model is not different from what other fintechs do. I mean, you see it probably have a sustainable flow of revenue. It's almost fee-based. There's no risk taken in that. So why should they be treated differently from a point of view of taking the risk in that very specific investment? I mean, the question is the sustainability aspect good for a 3 to 5 times exit within 5 years, what you traditionally look for as a VC or as a private equity? Maybe the requirements need also to be scaled down a little bit more under the sustainability view. Probably it takes longer for startups to really get to thriving in that environment, as the overall agenda is just being started, right? So if you take a look at, say, the next 10 years and you see a fintech like Arabask, one of the providers of data in that environment, they could probably be growing alongside the reporting requirements that are now being implemented in banks. And of course, that's a longer process, but from my point of view, as it is evident and can't be evaded, it's from my point, it's a sure bet. So if I were to invest, I probably would look out for sustainable investments as well.
And you, Lars?
Yeah, and maybe on top of that, I think we are also feeling the positive attention from our investors in the bank. So if you take BlackRock, which is a major investor in Danske Bank, there's also a heavy push from the investors on us to actually put sustainability investments on top of our agenda and fuel the whole sustainability green financing agenda. So I think, and that has changed. Who would have believed that BlackRock should be kind of the front runner in this area 12 months ago?
True. I'm seeing there's a question from Thomas or one in the audience.
Yeah, there's actually a question from the audience. I'm back in the moderator role here. After the pandemic accelerated digitalization trends in banking and insurance, can Nordic fintech leadership in innovation and user centricity pave the way for Nordic companies' expansion in Europe, as scale is enabled in digital financials ecosystem?
That's a difficult. I'll hand it over to you, Lars, for that question.
It's a tricky question, but let me come with just one example. If you take kind of our investment with Spear or Nordic API Gateway, I think exactly PSD2 is opening up for, you could say, global expansion much faster through that technology. So account aggregation, building value-added services on top of Nordic API Gateway technology will open up for actually faster expansion outside your home market. That being the Nordics, for example. Yeah.
I think just another example. I mean, if you take a look at Tink, probably a Nordic origin, right? Now expanding throughout Europe into probably all larger countries, and with a clear vision of what they want to be achieving on the API side and also going forward. Originally coming from a very B2C point of view, right, with being a personal finance manager, now kind of having repositioned as a probably global API provider and provider of connectivity in the future. That's for sure is a great example of exporting know-how and also entrepreneurship from the Nordics into other countries.
Great.
So to wrap it up, sure, fintechs will play a large role in moving the world towards a more sustainable economy. And a shout out to all high-net individuals. Look out for sustainable fintech startups.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Fantastic. Lars, Christopher, Pelle, thank you so much for participating in this discussion.